Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the latest edition of Mad Sports Radio. I'm Mike Mayer, along here with my guy Danny Udelf. Unfortunately, some bad news. We will not be able to hear the Cowboys rant from Andrew Marks. He's dealing with some health stuff. We wish him all the best and hope he's back here next week. We love you, Andrew. We miss you. Wish you could be here. We're doing this one for you. We're going to power through. And Danny, so another very interesting week in the National Football League. We'll get to your Steelers, believe me, because that is one of the most confusing stories in the NFL that I just still can't for the love of me figure out. But let's start on Monday night and let's go chronologically with these games because both these games had some interesting storylines and really like overarching themes for the rest of the season. And potentially we could be looking at two coaches getting fired because two teams fell to 0-3 on Monday night. Let's start off with the Bills just clobbering the Jags. 47-10. Like this was over at the half. I think it was 34-3. Josh Allen looks great. Here's what's one thing just to peel off for a second because Danny, you know me, I'm a Browns fan. Why the fuck did we hire Ken Dorsey? Because ever since he left Buffalo, Josh Allen has been playing the best football of his career. Like he's not the like antithesis of like and just like throwing up all over himself, making all these mistakes. Like Stephon Diggs gets out of there, and all of a sudden, this is maybe the best Buffalo Bills team ever. So, first, okay, let's start off with the Bills here because we love the Chiefs, man. But I'm watching this Bills team through 3 weeks. They might be a problem, man. Like this is as good as I've felt about Buffalo in a while because there's not a lot of distractions there anymore. Josh Allen looks like he's playing a lot more freely, not as much pressure on him. The defense is playing really well. James Cook, great running back, related to your guy, brother of Dalvin Cook, is fantastic. And he reminds me a lot of the way Dalvin plays. But there's just so much to like about this Bills team. So let's start there with the positive. What do you think of the Bills just through 3 weeks and just clobbering the Jags on Monday night?
Oh, I love the start the Bills are off to right now. They're playing great football. You're right about Josh Allen. This is the best he's ever looked in his career. I mean, he's had a very good career. He's been strong virtually every season of his career. But I think it kind of goes back even to last season. He's been limiting mistakes. He doesn't turn over the ball as much anymore. He seems like he's making smarter decisions with the ball. I think he has probably the best offensive line he's had in his career too. So he has a little more time to throw the ball. The Bills are firing on all cylinders, and it's both offense and defense. It's not just a one-man show with Josh Allen. Like you said, they have a lot of great players, but on both sides of the ball. And this is if there's ever a year that they could do it, I think it could be this year because honestly, even though there's some undefeated teams still, I don't think there's a team that's really stood out as much as the Bills so far.
Yeah, because I mean, even the Chiefs, as much as we love them, like they got away with a couple. They actually all three of their wins, they've gotten away
They've
with
had
some.
some battles.
And a lot of it's because they're just that damn good. Let's like I'm not going to rehash the conversation that we had last week about, I'm not going to rehash the conversation about are the referees rigging these games for the Chiefs? Like come on. That's just not a thing. That's just not a thing, okay? So, but yeah, this Buffalo team, like their kryptonite has always been Kansas City. So it's going to come down to what matters in the playoffs. But the way they're playing right now, I mean, yeah, they had that squeaker against the Cardinals in week 1, but then they went to Miami and beat the crap out of them. And I mean, yeah, say what you will about Jacksonville, but this was a demolition. Like this was an absolute destruction. And let's go there right now because I don't know what in the fuck is going on with the Jacksonville Jaguars right now. They were 8-3, looked like they were a shoo-in to get into the playoffs last year. They lose 5 of their last 6 and missed the playoffs at 9-8. And they let the surging Texans get in. And we'll have a separate conversation because the Browns had to face CJ Stroud and they got their butts kicked, but whatever. I would have liked to have kicked the Jags ass again, but you know what? That's neither here nor there. So whatever. But yeah, they've lost their first 3 to start this year. They probably should have won. Frankly, the Browns were trying to give them a win in week 2. They gave away, the Jags gave away a game to the Dolphins in week 1, and then this was just a destruction. And I just look around and I'm just like, what is going on here? Because they've got so many issues all over the place. Like their defense is not stopping people. Um, Trevor Lawrence is completely and utterly regressed. Obviously, we remember the first season of his career was the
Mm,
disastrous Urban Meyer experiment, which we all
yeah.
know was just a debacle of epic proportions, which set him back. But Doug Peterson came in there and seemed to right the ship. They went to the playoffs, but then last season happens, and now you're in a spot where they're 0-3, man, and I don't know if there's anywhere to go for this team. And they've paid Trevor Lawrence. They brought in Gabe Davis. That did nothing. He hasn't really had much of an impact. Christian Kirk had a nice game, but that's the first nice game that he's had, and he's getting paid what, like 17, $18 million. He's getting paid like a top wide receiver, and he's like, a slot. Like it's just it's a combination of what we've known about the Jags for the long time of their duration. It's just dysfunctional ownership, bad quarterback play, just bad play on the field, and this feels like it's heading towards another Jacksonville failure. The problem is, the fuck's going on with Trevor Lawrence, man? Like, we both loved him coming out of college.
Yeah.
Is this a lost cause?
I mean, we both thought he was going to be a superstar, and to some extent, he's had some good seasons so far in his career. He's 4 years in right now, and he's had two 4,000 yard seasons. He's definitely played well at times. He has two seasons with over 20 touchdowns, but he doesn't always look confident. He doesn't always look like he knows what he's doing out there. I don't know if it's a lack of weapons on offense or just a poor offensive line or just a combination of everything in his confidence levels. A big thing that's hurting him right now is his best target from last season was Evan Ingram, who laid an egg in game one and has been out the last two games. So Trevor Lawrence has one less weapon, and that Evan Ingram had something like 140 receptions last season, and now he has no one to throw to. The Jaguars are just a very poor drafting team. They're a poorly owned team. It's I think the only way to salvage Trevor Lawrence at this point is he needs to be traded, and someone needs to take a chance on him. And I still think he has value. He was sensational in college. I mean, he's one of the better, if not the best, college quarterback we've seen in the last decade, probably, or very close to it.
Right.
I would definitely put him in the top three, if not the best, in the last decade. I don't know where they can go from here, but I think Jacksonville really needs to just start trading players and just do a full rebuild. And I think they just need to start drafting better. I don't know what they can do, and I don't think they have enough time to really salvage the next few years of Trevor Lawrence's career. I think they have to move on and do it quickly and start a rebuild.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that we're even having this conversation again, man. Like it's like we feel like we went through this with Blake Bortles, like we went through this with all these other guys that have come through there, David Garrard. Like, I mean, they had some good years, like, and they caused your Steelers some trouble. Like, I mean, they went so their best season, ironically, was when they went to Pittsburgh, and then they probably should have gone to the Super Bowl that year.
Yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
it's just like this Khan ownership, and like, Danny, you know me, I'm a wrestling fan, and like, the Khan ownership, like Shad Khan, his son Tony Khan owns AEW. He's
Mhm.
also an executive with the Jaguars. And what I've seen, and I did a video of this on my channel, where I'm starting to see a lot of the tendencies that AEW, and yes, they're going to get a new television deal. They're going to be going on for a while, but a lot of their attendance, a lot of their interest has gone down, and WWE is rising. So what I've noticed is a lot of the same things the Jaguars are doing are being done in AEW. Like, they have an issue. Okay, let's go pay Gabe Davis. Let's go pay
Right.
Christian Kirk. Let's go pay all these guys who are probably above market value and don't deserve the contract that they do. Let's pay Trevor Lawrence, even though he showed promise, but he hasn't shown enough to warrant getting an extension like he did.
Right.
And so you're throwing money at the problems, and that's not solving the problem. Like, you've got to actually, if you have an issue, you can't just throw money at it and just deal that. That's not good ownership. And
Right.
that's what I think the Jags have a problem with, is like, okay, yeah, congratulations, you had a couple of 9-8 seasons, one of which went to the playoffs and you won a playoff game. But what the fuck have you done since that 2017 season? Nothing. They've
Right.
done nothing. They've done nothing. And
It's
outside of
all
that,
gone down.
yeah, it's just like what have you done? So I feel like this is just like the same story we've had with the Jags, and like the big story to come out of this is, like, for one, is Doug Peterson going to get fired? Because that's probably going to happen, and I feel bad for Doug Peterson because
He's a good coach.
he's a really good coach, and he's been put in a really tough spot. But you know how these situations go. Usually in these situations, when you have a quarterback with that type of contract, Even if you have enough equity, like Trevor Lawrence is going to get the benefit of the doubt probably in this situation, and
Oh
Doug
yeah.
Peterson's probably going to go before they think about doing that. But I'm interested to see that. And you know what? This is a pie in the sky idea. Jags, you want to reboot? Trade Trevor Lawrence to the Browns. We'll give you Deshaun Watson, and maybe see if you can try and resurrect that. Yeah, it's not happening, but you know what? Like, come on. Like,
I don't think anyone wants to touch Deshaun Watson with a 10-foot pole right now.
oh,
But nice
believe me.
try.
Oh, believe me. We're gonna have a conversation about the Browns here later on in this thing because I am livid. I am livid about that. So let's stay on our division. We're both AFC North. He's a Steelers fan. I'm a Browns fan. The Bengals are 0-3, man. Like
And I
what?
love it.
I,
I
I
love it.
I absolutely love it too because here's the first thing. First of all, let's talk about this. The Bengals have always talked, but they have been talking a lot more than they need to. Cam Taylor Britt like ran his mouth during the week. Basically, he said,
Mhm.
"Yeah, Cliff Kingsbury runs a college offense," and then the Washington Commanders with a rookie quarterback in only his third start in the NFL in Jaden Daniels throws two incompletions. He had more touchdowns total than he did incompletions on Monday night. 21 to 23 for 254, two touchdowns, 39 yards and another rushing touchdown. The Commanders go into Cincinnati, win 38-33. And there was a lot of like, people in like the sports media world who were trying to blame Joe Burrow. I like Joe Burrow. And I don't think he is the biggest I don't think he's the problem with this at all. It goes back to ownership.
Yep.
The ownership, the Brown family, is a disaster. They're a bunch of cheapskates, and they've dragged their feet with trying to pay Jamar Chase. They've dragged their feet trying to pay T. Higgins, and this is what you get. You got a bunch of distractions off the field, and I've been saying this for about 3 years now, and the Super Bowl year gave this guy a pass. Zach
Mhm.
Taylor is honest to God one of the worst coaches in the NFL. And I have no earthly idea why he still continues to have a job because how you don't punt the football and somehow like he's been getting by because of his players on his roster. Like the defense
Yeah.
can't stop anybody, and then you're just like you're putting your team in situations where you're not able to be successful. Like you cannot lose this game and go to 0-3. Like I think the Commanders are much better than I expected to, but you cannot under any circumstances lose this game. Like I think it's a glorious day that the Cincinnati Bengals are in the fucking cellar in the AFC North, and it's hilarious that they lost to the Commanders at home. By the way, before I throw this to you, you know who they play next week? This is hilarious. They play the Carolina Panthers.
Oh, that's gonna be fun.
Yeah, and Andy Dalton, like the only more it's in Carolina. It would be even more hilarious if it was in Cincinnati and Andy Dalton walked in there and did the exact
Oh,
same
God.
thing because that's a story in itself. But
Yeah.
Danny, we'll start with the Bengals here. We'll start with the losing side here. What the fuck is going on here, man? Like this is a mess.
You said it yourself. It all comes down to coaching. I also agree. Zach Taylor is a terrible coach. He's young. He still has a lot of time to learn. I think he's only 41 years old. But a young, inexperienced coach, and for the fact that he's been to a Super Bowl and the fact that he's gotten his team deep into the playoffs, he still has a losing record in Cincinnati overall.
Yes, that's right.
And he's been there for 5 years, I think now, or something like that. So, but overall, he's still got a losing record. He hasn't proven a lot. I think he's been carried by his good players. Joe Burrow is still playing really good football, despite the fact that the Bengals are 0-3. I don't think Joe Burrow is the problem. I think they have a good team. I think they have a lot of distractions, like you mentioned. The Jamar Chase contract negotiations have been such a big talking point. I think that's a massive distraction for them. Um, you know what the Bengals remind me of? The Bengals remind me of what the Chargers were last year.
Ah,
The Chargers lost 7 games last year by 3 points or less. And a lot of it was based on poor coaching decisions late in games and things like that. I honestly see this Bengals team as the same thing because the Bengals have lost all 3 games by less than a touchdown so far. They've been close games where they're making bad decisions, and I just I feel like the Bengals are, you know, a train wreck, and Zach Taylor needs to go. But I think they're a good enough team with enough talent to be way better than what they are right now.
yeah, and I think especially, and I'm not trying to knock the Steelers, like the Bengals like if the Ravens were off to a better start and like this was more of like they were chasing not just the Steelers because the Steelers are 2 games clear of everybody in the division, and three obviously now because of the Bengals because the Bengals lost, but because everybody's 1 and 2 or 0 and 3, but with the Bengals chasing the Steelers and still having games against them, they're talented enough to overcome something like this. But
Mhm.
at what point do you recognize that like it's like the conversation we had with Nick Sirianni last week is like you can be talented, but if you don't have the right coach and you aren't making the right decisions and putting your players in the best position to be successful, they're not going to win. You're not going to win. You're not going to win anything.
Right.
And they got to a Super Bowl. They caught a lot of people off guard because Joe Burrow is that fucking great. Jamar Chase is that fucking great. T. Higgins is that fucking great. I mean, they had Joe Mixon. He's gone now. They went to. I love Zach Moss, but Zach Moss, all due respect to him, is kind of a downgrade from Joe Mixon.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, I love Zach Moss and Chase Brown. It's a neat combo, but it's just like yeah, it's not they're in a lot of trouble. And like I said, they better go to Carolina and win. Otherwise, we're going to be having some serious conversation. That's like bordering on a tarmac game. Of yeah,
Yeah.
you remember the Lane Kiffin like he went to Arizona State as the USC head coach, gets fired on the tarmac after they got destroyed there in Tempe. So it's bordering on a tarmac game for Zach Taylor. Like and he
Yeah.
should like those 2 0 and 3 teams like Jacksonville and Cincinnati are going to be teams to watch potentially early for early firing watch. And
Yeah.
like I mean, normally we have the celebration of Black Monday after Week 18, but like I think these might be a couple coaches that might not make it through the season. Like if things don't
I
go.
could definitely see it. Absolutely. I agree.
All right, and then let's shift here to Washington real quick for a second. Jaden Daniels, like I said, 2 incompletions, a historic completion rate. I mean, look, I know what's going to happen here. I think Caleb Williams is going to be fine in Chicago. I've seen a lot of him. They just can't protect him. But Washington, man, like credit to Dan Quinn, and I know that if Andrew were on here, he would be just bemoaning the fact that he's gone and that he should be the Cowboys head coach because his
Yeah.
head coach, like they're that's just a disaster. Um, but hey, they go to Cincinnati and win this game, and it's like now it's becoming a conversation of like, is Jaden Daniels like a real thing? Like how good is this guy? Because like we both watched him in college, dominated LSU. I watched him a little bit at Arizona State. It's amazing to me that he didn't become what he was at LSU at Arizona State. But yeah, he's the number 2 pick, and like there's a legitimate buzz around the Commanders because this was a message on Monday night that like, hey, this isn't the same old Washington football team. Like they're here to mess around and maybe do some damage this year. What do you think of Jaden Daniels?
Yeah, I love Jaden Daniels in college. I thought he was amazing at LSU. I remember kind of mid-season last year when I wasn't sure that the Steelers were going to be a playoff team. And they were kind of on the cusp of maybe potentially tanking. I really wanted Jaden Daniels. He was moving up the draft board significantly, and I was like, I kind of knew at that point the Kenny Pickett experiment was probably coming to an end already. I
As
love
much
Jaden
as you
Daniels.
wanted to deny it, by the way.
I
By
did,
the way,
I did try to deny it, but the Kenny Pickett experience was not great. Um,
yes.
but I love Jaden Daniels. I thought he was a fantastic player. He's interesting because he kind of has a little bit of Michael Vick ability with the ball in his hands, running the ball, but he has such a great passing ability. He's got a great deep ball. He's very smart. He sees the field really well. He's able to move around in the pocket and make plays. He's the whole package. I honestly think he has the potential to become a top 5 NFL quarterback in the next few years. Obviously, one step at a time. He's only in 3 games in, but I mean,
Right.
he's completing 80% of his passes so far. He's scoring touchdowns. He's holding onto the ball. He's not turning the ball over much. I really like what I'm seeing from him. And I think he might be the big turning point that Washington has been looking for quite some time.
Also, shout out Cliff Kingsbury.
Yeah,
Shout
we
out
love.
Cliff Kingsbury for doing the great work with the offense there. Like, listen, Dan Quinn knows what he's doing too. Like, yeah, obviously he has to own the fact that he had the biggest collapse in a Super Bowl ever, but he can coach, man.
Oh
Dan
yeah,
Quinn can coach. Like
absolutely.
this. There's dudes on this team. I told you before the show. I love Terry McLaurin. Like he's one of the more underrated wide receivers in the NFL. Like
He's
they've got
awesome.
guys. Brian Robinson's on that team. He's a good running back. I mean, Austin. I totally forgot Austin Eckler was there.
Yeah,
Austin Eckler, they signed him in the offseason. Like they got
exciting.
dudes on that. They got dudes on that team. Like it's this isn't. I don't think this is a 1 week thing. Like I mean, yeah, granted, this comes a week after they needed 7 field goals to beat the Giants, but like,
Yeah.
but still, like you go on the road, really in your one of your first really big road tests on a nationally televised game, and you do that. You do
Hmm.
that. That's a wow game for me. And
I
I
could
would
see Washington sneaking into the playoffs this year. I
yeah,
think
it's
they're
it's. I mean, the NFC is like outside of the obvious teams, and also that East division. Like, I don't trust Philly. I know Andrew doesn't trust the Cowboys.
yeah,
I damn sure don't trust the Giants, even though we lost to them this week. But
yeah,
still, like that, like especially that division, and also just the rest of the AFC is just such a crapshoot. Why not? Why not?
yeah.
Like I love what I saw from them on Monday night. Okay, so, all right, let's get into these 3-0 teams because, okay, so the first two that we want to do here, Danny has like some sort of tie to. Because let's start with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I said it
Yes.
last week. Danny said it last week. I don't understand this. Justin Fields, best game he's played in Pittsburgh. It was a really
Oh,
a really great performance against the Chargers. You would have liked to have seen Justin Herbert be able to finish the game and not have to face Taylor Heineke, but Pittsburgh, their defense has just been so effing dominant through the first 3 games of the season. Like I think they had 5 sacks in this game. T.J. Watt gets another one. Cam Hayward, Ohio State, even though I can't
yeah.
really root for him because he's a Steeler, but Cam
It's Charlton.
Hayward, yeah, but yeah, he's awesome. He's great. So yeah, like we talked about it. Like at this point, this is Justin Fields' team. Like it has to be Justin Fields' team. Yeah, even though you scored 3 touchdowns, he hasn't made like a killer mistake to kill this thing, and
Right.
they're getting by doing just enough. This is like seriously, this is quintessential Steeler football, Danny. Like this is literally Steeler football to a T. Like they are not scoring. They're getting 51 points. I think it's one of the lowest numbers to start 3-0 ever. But they're getting enough done and like they're limiting teams and doing it defensively. Like do you trust I can't believe I'm asking this question because I know the answer. Do you trust that this team could actually, be something this year?
I, I'm starting to believe it. I went into the season pretty pessimistic. There were a lot of big changes. None of the quarterbacks from last year's roster came back. There were some changes out in the receiving group. The offensive line had a couple changes. Um, you know, defense had some changes, but for the better. But I like what I'm seeing so far. I knew the defense would be strong this year. And the defense is honestly better than I thought they would be. I mean, they've only allowed 8.7 points per game so far, which is just sensational. Like you mentioned, they had 5 sacks in the game. Alex Highsmith got hurt, and that next man up mentality. Nick Herbig comes in, gets 2 sacks in that
Two
game.
sacks, yep.
It's they have great pass rushing. They have great run stopping ability. I mean, the Chargers barely got any running game on them. I think the Chargers had a total of 60 rushing yards that entire game. Um, I'm very impressed, and on offense, the stats don't really show a lot yet, but Justin Fields has been pretty solid, and that was a excellent game for him. I mean, stats wise, it's not never going to show that was a great game, but he controlled the game. He controlled the offense very well. He made really smart decisions, really good decisions, really timely decisions. And the running game has been pretty solid so far. It's not amazing, but it's a really smart group that's outsmarting the other teams, and that's the biggest thing right now is the Steelers are playing not necessarily dominant football, but they're playing smart football, and that's going to carry them. And our next 3 opponents right now are all kind of in shambles. The Colts come up next week, and Anthony Richardson is. I don't trust Anthony Richardson or like him at all.
What a roller coaster that guy is, man.
He's a hot disaster. After that, we got the Cowboys, and I'm sure Andrew will will
Oh
agree that
boy,
that's
man,
gonna be a
go
fun
go
game.
back to those old Super Bowl matchups, man. Like I love an
Yeah,
old Steelers Cowboys game, man.
yeah, and then we got the Raiders the week after that. We've got three consecutive one-win teams coming up so far that are all kind of highly inconsistent to start the season and kind of have a
Jeez,
lot
you guys
on.
could be
So
say you guys could be looking at 6-0. Like
you could be sitting.
I hadn't really gotten a chance to look at your guys' schedule. You guys could be 6-0. Like
I see this team going 6-0 with that schedule coming up because I honestly think that is a very very beneficial schedule for the way we're playing and the way those teams are playing right now.
Well, and listen, like it doesn't come down to like how great Justin Fields needs to be. He's in like the absolute perfect situation. And yeah, we could say what we want about Arthur Smith as an offensive coordinator, but the guy has known how to like, keep things simple, and like it's the perfect complement to the way this team wants to play. Like they're not
Mhm.
going to wow you with like all these splash plays and go like 50 yards up and down the field and like and go like have these 3 play drives where they score really quickly and they have this up tempo offense. They don't want to do that. They want
Yeah.
to run the ball, like play ball control, obviously with Najee Harris, and this read option game. Obviously, like having a mobile guy like Justin Fields there, like that's definitely helped. That got them a touchdown as well. So, like, listen, Mike. I mean, you're our rival, man. But like, it's like I always talk to my dad about this. It's like, man, we always strive for like, man, I wish we were like the Steelers and always winning all these games. And like like I know you and me jab each other a lot, but it's like I always poke fun at you. It's like, yeah, Mike Tomlin, yeah, he's kind of gotten by on a lot of things, and like, winning that Super Bowl so early kind of helped him. But the guy's a fucking great coach because I mean, yeah, sometimes he'll underachieve with some more talent, or like when there'll be. I mean, I'm no, you're probably just waiting for the inevitable Mike Tomlin classic letdown game, which
Oh yeah.
seemingly always is going to happen whenever they have an inferior opponent. I mean, hell, like you're doubting Anthony Richardson this week. I don't fucking know, but who's to say? Who's to say that that's not going to happen? But the point is, a lot of this has to go to Tomlin too, because even as stubborn as he can be, even sometimes as baffling the decisions as he can make, there's a reason he's been there for 15 plus years.
Oh
I
yeah.
think we're at what, 17 now that he's been there. We're yeah,
Something like that. Yeah, that
or
sounds about right.
something crazy. Like
18,
it's just
17.
like, but it's just like nobody gave this team a chance whatsoever to start this season. They're 3-0, and they're the guy who was supposed to be their backup quarterback to start the season. Like Russell Wilson was supposed to be the quarterback. He's not going to get that job back. Like unless
Nope.
Justin Fields does something catastrophic or gets injured, Russell Wilson is not touching the field this year. So that's another that's another thing that needs to be pointed out here that I didn't even think we were going to talk about here. That's a chess piece for you guys to potentially go get something, because
Yeah.
they're like the Miami Dolphins absolutely need a fucking quarterback right now, because
Oh, they do.
I don't know if Tua Tagovailoa is going to play again this season. So there's teams in the NFL that can absolutely use a quarterback right now. And yes, Russ is not who he is, but that's a piece on the chessboard for you guys to potentially like, throw out there and just like, use it as like a chess piece to like maybe go land another like, weapon, or maybe like not saying that you guys need help on defense, but it's like you could go get whatever you want and this team could be even better. So like it's wild that this is like, and it's really just flying really under the radar, because some of these other 3-0 teams have made like a really big, impression on the rest of the league.
Yeah.
So that's crazy. Speaking of that, let's go to the other, one that sort of has a tie to you. That's really an underreported and under like talked about 3-0 team, and that's the Seattle Seahawks. I think there's people around here that, honest to God, think Pete Carroll is still coaching the Seahawks. I'm serious. I'm dead serious. Like, yeah, they haven't wowed you. Like, yeah, they go out and beat the Dolphins, who were down to their second string quarterback. They beat the Patriots the week before. They get by beating Bo Nix, a rookie quarterback, at his first start. Like, this was about what you've expected. But the Seahawks are in a similar situation to the Steelers. Everyone in the NFC West is 1-2. Like the Rams, the 49ers have, that's a whole other discussion. That's a problem, because they're just so beat up. The Rams have lost every conceivable receiver on their roster. Like, I don't know how they're fielding a team at this point. I don't even know who's Matthew Stafford throwing. And you know what? Hey, the Cardinals are fun, and Kyler Murray's back, but they're 1-2 too. So like they've lost a couple of games, and they lost kind of a heartbreaker there at the end against the Lions. But you live in Seattle, Danny, and I know that they love their Seahawks up there. Is like, listen, like I know it's only through 3 weeks, but this is like, hey man, Seahawks. Are we surprised? Are we surprised?
I'm very surprised. I mean, they had a good season last year. They finished 9-8 last season, which is average, above average. But they're off to a hot start, and their defense is fantastic. Just like what we are talking about the Steelers. They have 11 sacks so far. They have five forced fumbles in the first three games. They're getting turnovers. They're playing great, solid defense. I like what Gino's doing on offense. I think the Seahawks are a contender this year, and I'm kind of surprised by it. I wasn't really expecting it. Like you said, probably a lot of people up here in Seattle probably don't even know that Pete Carroll's not there anymore. It's I feel like the Seahawks over the last few years since Russell was traded, they've been kind of a forgotten team, and I think they're kind of slowly sneaking their way back into it right now. And I honestly think they are for real. I think they're a contender. I like what they've done so far. They're playing chess right now against their opponents, and they're winning.
Yeah, it's a good team, man. Like, I mean, they've got receivers. DK is still there. I mean, hell, my guy Zach Charbonnet, I saw at UCLA running in for
Off
a
to a
couple of.
solid start.
He's off to a very solid start, filling in for Kenneth Walker, Smith and Jigba, and Tyler Lockett, who's like the ageless wonder. It feels like he's been there 100 years. Like, yeah,
He's
and they
got
still
me.
get and they still get it done. They still get it done defensively. I mean, for God's sake, Mike McDonald's probably our age. Mike McDonald's our age, and he's a head coach in the NFL. He's like one of the youngest coaches in the league. I mean, I'm just glad he's not terrorizing our teams with his defense because he was a really
Yeah,
good he was a really good defensive coordinator with the Ravens. But yeah, like a lot of people just don't realize, hey, yeah, Mike McDonald's actually coaching this team. It's not Pete Carroll because Pete Carroll
yeah,
was there for like 15 years and just sort of just nonchalantly just like like sort of resigned and left, and they kind of moved on. And like, yeah, it's still business as usual for the Seahawks, but it is a little bit surprising because I mean, not so much like, hey, these are games that they should have won out of the gate, but it's a little bit surprising considering, hey, they're just sort of there, they're just flying under the radar, like nobody's really talking about them. So it's like it's almost like business as usual for the Seahawks, really. So
yeah.
uh, all right, so we won't do too much on the Chiefs here because like we've already said what we can say about the Chiefs because they're 3-0. They're just that damn good. Like, I mean,
They are.
yeah, they've had to win. These were championship wins for them in the first 3 weeks where, yeah, you need I mean, you get a couple of stops at the end against the Falcons who I don't know what they were doing at the end of that game. The Falcons could have kicked a couple field goals and potentially won that game. They're fun. I like a lot of their pieces there, but I just don't know how much longer you have on the clock until you have to go to Michael Penix because like I just don't know. Like you Kirk Cousins, like he's fine, but I just don't know if there's a certain ceiling with this team with Kirk Cousins. And yeah, they had that nice drive to beat the Eagles at the end of the game in week 2, but this felt like a big missed opportunity for the Falcons. But in terms of the Chiefs, like yeah, they win by a toe against the Ravens in week 1. They get a last second field goal from Harrison Butker at the end against the Bengals. Some people say it was a pass interference call. It wasn't. And then they literally they were for most of the game against the Falcons. They were dominating. I mean, I texted a buddy of mine. They're like, yeah, they're just sleepwalking like the Warriors. I was like, yeah, that's kind of what they're doing. Like it's just really it's been really a nondescript, really just like nonchalant start to the season. It's like the Chiefs are like, yeah, let's get to January. Let's just get to
Yeah,
January because Travis Kelce has done nothing this season. I mean, obviously they have to deal with the injury to Isaiah Pacheco. It's really like it's an interesting team like that. And I mean, I love what they're doing with this kid Xavier Worthy, and Rasheed Rice has been awesome.
yeah. Oh, Rice has been fantastic.
Yeah, like legal issues aside, he's been fantastic on the field. Like he's been great. So yeah, and Mahomes is like he's been fine, but he hasn't lit the world on fire. So real quick, just like your thoughts on the Chiefs. Like I mean, they're 3-0. It's like we shouldn't be surprised, but it's just like it feels like you know there's a lot of reasons for people to nitpick at this, but the reality of the situation is this is just what championship teams do. This is what they do.
I don't feel like the Chiefs care about regular season football. That's what
That's
it feels
that's that's
like.
that's exactly me too. Yeah.
It's they're like, we're gonna get to the playoffs one way or another, and that's where we start to care.
It's like
So
teams in the middle of an NBA season, right? It's like really good teams in the middle of an NBA season, right? It's like when
yeah,
you start when you go through when you're in the middle of an NBA season, it's like they got rid of this whole load management thing. It's like hey, Steph Curry, like, or you got Steph Curry and like the Warriors, they're going to play just a random game in Charlotte. It's like, oh yeah, we'll coast for a little bit through this game because who cares?
yeah.
So
I don't really have any exciting talking points on the Chiefs. I mean, they're just a championship team that is just kind of, making their way through the regular season like they always do, and they're probably already mentally preparing for the playoffs. That's it feels like they're just kind of they don't they're it almost feels like they're tanking without actually tanking. I
tanking.
don't know how to explain it. Like it's just
I,
like
I understand what you mean. You're basically like saying, hey, they're saving it till they have to flip the switch. Like
right. It's like
I remember this a lot with the Cavs. Like the second time LeBron was there, like like the 20 like this was when the Cavs and Warriors were literally dominating the NBA. And like 2017 and 2018, they would have some of these head scratching losses to like terrible teams like Orlando because they would just not care. They would just
right.
not care. So I feel like one of those losses is probably going to come for the Chiefs, and naturally everybody's just going to freak out like they did
Right.
last year when they lost like 5 or 6 games, and then they won 2 road games to go to the Super Bowl last year,
Right.
and it was
And they're
business as usual. So it's just like what
the Chiefs are going to get their 12 or 13 wins, and
yeah.
that's all there is
I
to it.
mean, hell, they could have a 10 win season, and it won't even fucking matter. Like,
That's true.
they could have a 10 win season, and it's like I still think that they could easily go to like Buffalo or anywhere else and go win it, and go win another Super Bowl. So it's a
And
very
I don't feel like they care if they have to play on the road in the playoffs, which is also kind of
yeah
funny. Just
yeah exactly because they
just
have the
like,
best
we're just gonna do our thing, and we're going to speed burst when we need to.
yeah, and they have the best they have one of the best home field advantages in the NFL. So it's like yeah,
Beautiful,
even if they have to go
beautiful
yeah.
stadium, by the way.
Yeah, it's a very beautiful stadium. I know you visited down there a couple of
Andrew and I did the stadium tour back in August when we were in Kansas
yeah,
City, and it is
yeah,
gorgeous.
very nice, very nice. Okay, so I know you wanted to talk about this because this is honestly one of the big surprises like in the entire NFL. The Minnesota Vikings are 3-0, and it like listen, like they've gone out and beaten up teams. They beat the 49ers 2 weeks ago. Granted, these were both at home, and then they just annihilate the Houston Texans this
Mm.
weekend, 34-7. CJ Stroud had one of probably his worst games as a starter. The story of this whole thing, for one, is Sam Darnold because I like Sam Darnold coming out of college. I was kind of disappointed when the Browns didn't take him. It obviously worked out to some degree with Baker Mayfield. We got a playoff win out of it. I've always seen him as talented. He's just in bad situations. And this goes back to what we talked about early on in the show, what good coaching can do for a
Hmm.
talented guy. And I don't think it can be said enough. Kevin O'Connell and also along with Matt LaFleur, we won't talk about the Packers. The Packers being at where they are right now is unbelievable, considering Jordan Love hasn't played since the first week of the season. Like
Yeah.
these NFC North coaches have been amazing, but Kevin O'Connell has done an unbelievable job, because everybody thought that this was going to be JJ McCarthy's team. And then JJ McCarthy gets hurt, and we're like, oh, Sam Darnold, he hasn't done anything. And everybody remembers the Jets and the Panthers years when he was terrible. I actually think the San Francisco year that he spent there actually did a lot for him to be in a decent system and be in a good environment.
Yeah.
But to go to Minnesota and basically you thought, hey, you were going to be a bridge guy for JJ McCarthy to start the season. JJ McCarthy's out for the year. And now you see him playing freely. He's leading the NFL in touchdown passes. Like this is like I'm so happy for this guy because he's been so maligned for so long. But I also think it needs to be mentioned that how great and how elite of a coach Kevin O'Connell is, because to completely transition, like because they almost made the playoffs with Josh Dobbs and some of these random people starting for them last year. Like Kevin O'Connell is a fucking good coach, and
Yes.
to resurrect a career like Sam Darnold and put him in a position like this and have the Vikings at 3-0 is unbelievable. I know you're all aboard the Vikings bandwagon right now, right, man?
Oh, absolutely. I'm on board with the Vikings bandwagon. I'm riding the Sam Darnold bandwagon too. I was if you remember, we're gonna jump back in time to the 2018 draft. If you remember, I don't think I was anywhere near as gung ho on Sam Darnold as a lot of people were. In fact, I remember making a comment, and you might remember this too. There were 5 quarterbacks drafted in that first round, and I said one of them was going to end up being a top 5 NFL quarterback. You know who that quarterback was?
It's Josh Rosen.
It was Josh Rosen. And you know who the only bust out of that 5 is so far?
Josh
Josh
Rosen.
Rosen.
It shows you what the hell you know. But hey, man, like I saw him at UCLA. I honestly thought Josh Rosen was gonna be a lot better than he was. Like I think
Oh,
a lot of people whiffed on Josh Rosen. Like that
I
was a
wanted Josh
straight.
Rosen. I wanted Josh Rosen to be Ben
Who had
Roethlisberger,
Josh
just like
Allen being the best quarterback out of that draft? Who had
Lamar
believe me,
Jackson.
Lamar Jackson too. Yeah, Lamar Jackson was taking the last. I keep forgetting that he was like literally the last pick of the first round. But
And
yeah,
of,
Lamar
and of
Jackson's
course,
a two.
Baker,
Lamar,
Baker Mayfield has turned a corner.
yeah, no, well, I mean, listen, like I'm gonna hear a bunch of revisionist history about this whole, should the Browns have taken Josh Allen. There's no reason for me to believe that the Browns that Josh Allen would be this degree of good. Like that organization in Buffalo is outstanding. Sean
Yeah,
McDermott's an unbelievable head coach. He had Brian Dable, who's an outstanding offensive coordinator, who's now a head coach for the Giants. Now you have Joe Brady, who was the coordinator for when Joe Burrow had maybe the best statistical season in the history of college football.
yeah.
So, like, there's a good infrastructure over there. Like, the Browns organization, you see it, and we'll get to the Browns here in just a second. Like, it's broken. It's broken.
Yeah.
It's like because ownership doesn't know when the fuck to stay out of football operations. And for God's sake, they took Johnny Manziel because a homeless guy told them to do it. Like, what are we talking about? What are we talking about here? So it's
I
just
love it.
yeah. So like in
But yeah,
terms of
anyway, back to the Vikings.
back to the Vikings, I don't know how the hell we got
We
there.
got really
Yeah.
off topic there. I love what they're doing. O'Connell's a great coach. You're absolutely right on that. I was going to mention that, but you obviously mentioned that. Sam Darnold was a great acquisition, and I love seeing him finally developing because he has been in some rough situations. He's on his fourth team, which is just crazy to think about that a guy who was that highly touted out of college has, he's 7 years into his career and he's on his fourth team already.
Right.
I like the Aaron Jones pickup was just is something we have to talk about. I mean, he's
Yeah.
been so far. Their offense is really, really good. I like what they're doing. Darnold leads the league in touchdowns, like you mentioned. He has 8 touchdown passes so far. He's doing absolutely great. He's got the best receiver in football, as far as I'm concerned, in Justin Jefferson. I honestly think this Vikings team is possibly my favorite to win the NFC this year. I
No,
really like
no,
where they're
no,
going.
and the defense is really good too. Like Brian Flores, like remember Brian Flores, like who got unceremoniously run out of the Dolphins? He's the defensive coordinator there. They're stopping teams, like they're
Yeah,
limiting teams. Like it's not like yeah, they faced the Giants week 1 and the Giants aren't good, but I think they held 49ers to under 20 points, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And then like this week, like then you go out CJ Stroud, and yeah, they were missing Joe Mixon in this game. Houston was. But Houston is a team, man. Like that
yeah,
Houston is a really good team. And they fucking annihilated them. So like it needs to be mentioned, like, yeah, all the things that you said, Aaron Jones, that pickup really underrated. Like really,
very
really
underrated.
underrated because ever since Dalvin Cook left Minnesota, like their running game, like it was what it was Alexander Madison and just like a
Yeah,
couple
that's
other
good.
guys, and it's just like it was kind of thrown together. Like getting Aaron Jones, a guy who like I understand why they went to Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs, like high profile pick in Green Bay. But that just felt weird because Aaron Jones feels like he still has a lot left in the tank, and he's shown it.
Yeah,
Like he had a really good game on Sunday. So, um, yeah, yeah. But the Vikings at 3-0, man. Like it's hard to argue with that because I mean they're really well coached. I think one of the things when they won in Kevin O'Connell's first year, I think they won 13 games. One of the things that really held them back was their defense. I don't think their
right.
defense is the problem this year. It's really going to come down to is can you trust Sam Darnold through the course of this season to not revert back to the Sam Darnold that we know, and really mistake prone and just trust what you have. And they're going to get Jordan. I think Jordan Addison hasn't played for them. He's a really talented guy for them at receiver as well. They've had a bunch of other guys step up as well. Um, it's a really good team. It's a really good team. I'm just surprised given who the quarterback was and like they were kind of just like hey, especially with the way that division is, man. Like I mean, you've got Caleb Williams, all the hype with him as the rookie quarterback with the Bears, and that's kind of a debacle in its own right. You've got
Yeah,
Jordan Love. He's been out hurt since week 1, and yet the Packers have still found a way to put it together with Malik Willis. So credit to Matt LaFleur for what
which
he's
is
done
insane.
there. And the Lions, like Dan Campbell's as good as there is. Like, I mean, yeah, he made
Oh
some
yeah,
mistakes in the playoff. He made some mistakes in the playoffs last year, but that team is so good in Detroit, and Jared Goff, like they figured out a way to make him functional again. It's just like that division's going to be really interesting to watch, and if Minnesota's playing at this level, I don't think there's any reason to believe that they couldn't contend and ultimately, go to the Super Bowl, which is,
I see
that's
it.
always
I,
that's
I
always that's always been a running gag that they can't get there. Like you and me are How I Met Your Mother fans. Gary Anderson. I remember that game that they were like I always pop for that scene when they talk about like, hey, who missed the field goal of the 1998 or 1999 whatever year it was in NFC Championship game. I remember it was Gary Anderson, and it's like just a sidebar here for all y'all. Like, and Andrew's a big How I Met Your Mother fan, but the Minnesota Vikings have really always been a butt of jokes in terms of like, yeah, they win a lot during the regular season, but when it comes to the time when it matters, they'll miss a field goal. Blair Walsh, Gary Anderson. They'll get a miracle play from Stephon Diggs, but then throw up on themselves a week later and not get a chance to go to the Super Bowl in their own city. Like, this would be so epic if this was actually the team to do it. With
you know what would be more
Sam
fun?
fucking Darnold doing this.
You know what we really need this season? Just a quick sidebar. We need the Vikings versus the Bills, the two teams that are just cursed when it comes to the Super Bowl.
That is I would totally sign off with that. That that
I
that
would,
would be a that would be one of the most like I mean a lot of tradition there too, man, dude.
and Darnold and Josh Allen coming from the
Yeah,
same draft class.
yeah,
No, there's
exactly.
another
Yeah, and a
topic.
lot. Yeah, there's a lot of ties there. I love that. So, um, all right, okay. Let's do this first before we get to my Browns. So we talked last week at length about what the Carolina Panthers were doing with Bryce Young. What the fuck
Mhm.
did we know, man? Because they go to Vegas and Andy Dalton, the Red Rifle, is back, man. They smoked. Like Deontay Johnson they dusted him off from the Steelers days. He was catching touchdowns. Adam
Yeah.
Thielen, unfortunately, he's now on IR, but he caught a touchdown in this game. Like you had Chuba Hubbard. Like I mean, you remember that there are some players in Carolina, but like what the hell? This was flabbergasting to me. Like I was flabbergasted looking at this whole thing and seeing just how bad this looked for the Raiders and just it was 33-7 at one point. They went 36-22, but it was 33-7 at one point in this game. Man, we missed this one, man. Like I mean, Andy Dalton's terrorized both of our teams. I just didn't think he had anything left in the tank, but maybe I'm wrong.
Kind of feels like a little Joe Flacco thing, right?
Oh God, don't even go. Believe me, believe me, I got some stuff on that. I got some stuff on that when we get to the Browns.
Joe Flacco came out and played well for the Browns, you know. But no, I love, I've always loved Andy Dalton. I've always been a big fan, even though he was on a rival team for many many years.
You actually met him. You actually met him.
At Andy Dalton before when TCU played Wisconsin at the Rose Bowl. I met him a couple days before, randomly at the Santa Monica Pier in California, and he was nice enough to take a picture with me. Still have that, and very nice guy. So I've always been a big fan of him. I think he's a great player. I love it. You know what this reminded me of is, and again I'm going to reference my Steelers here. This reminds me after the disaster we had at quarterback last year with Trubisky and Pickett, and then everyone's cheering for Mason Rudolph to come in. Everyone wants it, and Mason Rudolph comes in and wins 3 straight games and gets us into the playoffs. Andy Dalton is maybe what Carolina needs right now. I like him. I think he's a great player. I didn't know he had anything left in the tank. I kind of thought he'd be a backup and mentor to Bryce Young, but here he is taking Bryce Young's job instead, and I'm all for it.
All right. First of all, I'm glad you mentioned all of these, these guys who've come in and like, saved the season, because this is another helpful argument for me, Danny, because I've been having to fight a lot of the keyboard warriors in the Browns fan base who still want to defend Deshaun Watson and say, yeah, you know what? Hey, he had bad protection. It's like, dude, put fucking Jameis Winston in already. Like,
Yeah.
why not? Why not? Why not? Like, it's like, what are we waiting for? Like, are we waiting for just the legal issue to play out and him to get suspended at this point? Because this is like a perfect segue into what I wanted to talk about with the Browns. Because I've got ad nauseum with so many different takes here on the channel about just how humiliating that loss was to the New York Giants on Sunday. They lose 21-15. The Giants fumble the opening kickoff. The Browns get it, score a touchdown. They're up 7-0, 11 seconds into the game. They scored 8 points the rest of the game. 8 points the rest of the game. Deshaun Watson got sacked 8 times, but listen, I'm not absolving Deshaun Watson of anything. Of anything. I don't care if the offensive line's bad and Bill Callahan left. Bill Callahan's not doing great over it with his son in Tennessee. They're one of the worst teams in the NFL. That's not an excuse. Yeah, Amari Cooper had a really great game. They don't have the running backs. People are trying to migrate to Cedric Tillman dropping a pass at the end of this game or Jerome Ford fumbling the ball and not handling a handoff correctly. Listen, if you're supposed to be a 6.5 point favorite like the Browns were at home against a terrible team like the New York Giants, your $230 million quarterback who you changed the entire fucking offense for and hired Ken Dorsey, a guy who the team that he got fired from has gotten better from. So like this, like I said, everybody's trying to throw blame all over the place. The offensive line's a mess, but a lot of this has to do with the structure of the offense of what's going on with this Browns team. Because they're this very pass-heavy organization. It's weird. I understand that Nick Chubb's not there, but they're not even trying to run the ball. Like, this is the antithesis of a Kevin Stefanski run offense. Because they are doing everything that they can to try and prove that they did not make a mistake with Deshaun Watson. And through 3 weeks, this is clear as day. It is a mistake. Rip the Band-Aid off. I'm sick. He hasn't cleared 200 yards in the first 3 weeks, Danny. Joe Flacco, in 5 of the last 6 games that he played for the Cleveland Browns last year, he cleared 300 and took him to the fucking playoffs. And that was off the fucking couch. Don't even give me this crap anymore with this guy. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of everybody just trying to, make excuses for this guy. When you're getting paid $230 million, fair or not, a lot of people, when they gave him the contract, he's not near the upper echelon of quarterback. When you're getting paid like that, I don't give a shit. Like, you should be able to perform better. You're supposed to be the savior. And it's just like, I am so sick and tired of everybody just passing off for mediocrity. Like, they fortuned off the farm to get this guy, and there's just no excuses. You can't lose that game. You can't lose that game to the Giants. It's ridiculous, man. I don't know if you got anything.
I love the angry Browns fan. Oh, I love it.
I know.
No, you're 100% spot on. You're right about your team. I don't know how anyone can even support Deshaun Watson with all the allegations he has, and the fact that there's more coming in is just insane to me that he's still even in the NFL. Honestly, he should have been suspended pending the results of these allegations, because to me, one allegation is one thing, but he has so many different ones.
20 plus.
I don't know how you don't just permanently suspend him until they're all finished. But that's a sidebar for a different day. But he has to go. He has to be benched. I don't care what dollar amount he's making. Your team is at a crossroads right now, and someone's going to get fired if your team continues to start Deshaun and continues to lose.
I'm telling you what. Okay, I'll let you finish that. I'll jump in here in a second.
And like I said, I mean, we saw it with Andy Dalton, we saw it with Joe Flacco, we saw it with Mason Rudolph. You put a backup quarterback in, and sometimes you have a completely different team behind that player because they rally around that guy, because that guy's not supposed to be there. It's the same with Sam Darnold too. Put the backup quarterback in. Don't go with the big money guy who's struggling. It's common sense, and we keep run over and repeat. People try to push these guys to their limits. And if they're struggling, it doesn't always work, and it doesn't always end well. Deshaun Watson has to go. He has to be benched. You guys need a fresh start.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, I think this is totally an ownership thing. Like, this is totally Kevin Stefanski has got no authority. Like, it's the Haslam family, swooping in, much like Jerry Jones, like a dollar store version of Jerry Jones, just trying. Like, that's what this contract was, and that's what this was, because like they had a perfect system, and I understand that they had to move on from Baker Mayfield. Like, they had to. Like, it was not working, and it wasn't going to be sustainable to the point where they were, so they had to move on. But by no means is this Kevin Stefanski's fault whatsoever. Right. Like, what is he like? They had to rework the offense because they have a quarterback that doesn't mesh with Kevin Stefanski's core principles of a Gary Kubiak, Mike Shanahan offense, where it's like, a lot of run-based offense, a lot of play action. Deshaun Watson's got to be in the shotgun. And it's like, that's not the offense. And then when they run these things, they can't block properly for it, so they don't have the personnel for it. And then when it comes down to basic execution, Deshaun's missing like wide open guys. Like he skipped a ball, he threw a knuckleball like short of Amari Cooper in like the third quarter of this game where I literally was like I almost like my jaw was almost on the floor. I was like, what was that? Like
Yeah,
it's just so it's like anybody who wants to blame Kevin Stefanski for any of this, you're a fucking idiot because
agreed.
that guy is a two-time coach of the year. He's taken the Browns to the playoffs. Like Danny, here's a stat for you. So first of all, of the guys that were hired before him by the Haslam family, he has more wins than all of them combined. He's got
That's it.
37 wins. Like the rest of the coaches, which includes Rob Chudzinski, Mike Pettin, Hugh Jackson, Greg Williams, I guess you could count because he was an interim coach, and Freddie Kitchens. They all had 28 wins combined. Kevin Stefanski has 37.
That's
He's got
insane.
he's got the most wins since the Browns came back of any coach since the Browns came back to the NFL in 25 years ago. He's the
That's
best
absolutely
coach. He's the best coach. He's got more wins than Bill Belichick had as the Browns head coach. I know that's not saying much because Bill Belichick wasn't as great as he was with the Patriots, but still,
right.
if you're trying to blame Kevin Stefanski, it's like, hey, you can't fix the offense to cater to Deshaun Watson. Maybe it's Deshaun Watson, the guy who's getting paid all this money. He just sucks. Like,
Yeah.
what are we talking about here, man? Like, it's just like,
If Kevin Stefanski gets fired over Deshaun Watson's terrible play, every Browns fan should just disown the team
oh,
at that point.
oh man, I will probably be on free agency watch if we do that, man. Like, what the fuck is that conversation? All right, one of your favorite teams. We don't talk a lot of college football in here. Most of the time, I do a West Coast based football show, but hey, I talked about this game ironically on the West Coast Best Football Show, which you can get later in the week here on the channel. Florida State was playing Cal, a team that I've gotten to know very, very well in my time covering the Pac-12. Justin Wilcox is a very good coach. So this game is in Tallahassee. I thought it was going to be a tough ask for Cal to go there. Cal should have won this game.
Oh yeah,
Cal should have won this game, and that's not what this is about. This is about Florida State, a team that was undefeated last year and got unceremoniously left out of the playoffs. We all know what happened. I first of all, I've told you this, and you could probably get into this. I don't think that some of the guys on that roster, and even Mike Norvell, have mentally recovered from what happened
right.
with that decision by the CFP committee to leave them out. They're 1-3. They're lucky to be 1-3 because
They
like
are.
Cal got 3 field goals. They missed a couple at the end of this game. Cal had the ball driving with a chance to win at the end. Um, I don't know what's going on here, man. Like, I mean, I've wanted to try and believe that DJ Uiagalelei could work given his stature as a 5-star quarterback. I wanted it to work at Oregon State. It obviously didn't work, and he wanted to go to a bigger school. It didn't work at Clemson, and it's clearly not working here because
Yeah.
there's Florida State. I just don't know what's going on with your program, man. Like it feels like they should be way, way, way better than what we're dealing with right now. Like you're barely getting by in the ACC. Like you lost at home to Memphis. You lost at
Yeah.
home to Memphis. Like what's your take on your Knowles, man? Like that's a
Well,
surprise.
I've been watching FSU football since the '90s. I've gone through countless quarterbacks. I don't even know how many quarterbacks I've watched play. DJ is the worst quarterback I've ever seen in an FSU jersey, and
And you've been
he's
through
terrible.
you've been through a lot of them, man. Like
I've been through some bad ones. I
yeah.
mean, even last year, Brock Glenn, when he came in for those 2 games, was just absolutely abysmal. But I've been through the great seasons with guys like Jameis Winston, Christian Ponder, all the way back to the '90s, Charlie Ward. But like, DJ's awful. I can't watch him. He's unwatchable, and he makes this team horrible. I don't know if you saw any of the game or if you saw the pregame or anything like that. He got booed when they announced his name as for the start when they were announcing the starters. He got booed by the fans. The fans see it. The fans like your own fan base is booing a guy in his 4th career game with your team. That's just insane. Like that just tells you he needs to go. And I'm going to give you a really really good stat right now that's going to tell you just how shitty he is. So Jordan Travis, former quarterback of Florida State, who graduated last season, or at the end of last season, I should say, in the last 18 games that he played, 18 consecutive games, Florida State had 20 or more points in every single game, win or lose, that he played in for 18 straight games to finish his career. DJ, so far has played 4 games. Florida State has 1 game where they've scored 20 points. That was the first game of the season against Georgia Tech. They have had 3 straight games, including this win, where they have failed to get to 20 points. DJ had one great throw to Ja'Kai Douglas for a touchdown. That was the only good throw he made all game. He's been
He can
terrible
he can
otherwise.
he can
Yeah,
make plays. He's just so inconsistent, and he's so like it's just
he is.
like the mechanics are kind of screwed up. Like it's just like you watch him, it's just like he's very
He's a
robotic,
terrible decision maker.
and yes, and
He makes bad
yeah, it's
He's
just
slow. He's slow with the ball. He's a horrible decision maker. He has to go. I like. I know Brock Glenn when Jordan Travis got hurt last year and Tate Rodemaker didn't work out. I know Brock Glenn came in and had a couple of really bad games, but I would take him over DJ right now. We have a really high end recruit, Luke Kromenhoek, who's a freshman. Throw him into the fire.
why not?
I don't love to throw a true freshman quarterback into the fire, but Luke Kromenhoek is very talented.
It's you're 1-3. Like you're one
Yeah,
and three. You've already lost. Okay, so I'm trying to piece. Okay, so yeah, you've already lost two AC. You've lost two ACC games already. Like, you've already
yeah,
lost two. Like so the conference, like you're fighting a losing battle already. Like the
right.
season's already effectively done.
Yeah,
Like
we could still make a bowl game if we play well. I mean, our defense has been really good.
yeah.
It's just our offense has been lackluster, and it's all our passing game. I mean, our running game has been solid.
And
DJ's just
Norvell is kind of in the same position that Kevin Stefanski is in, really, like
he
trying to
is.
cater, because I watched a lot of, I haven't watched as much of Florida State since the week 1 game, because obviously or not week 1, the week 0 game against Georgia Tech in Ireland, because it was the first
Mhm.
college football game of the year. But I could see, especially early on, how they were really doing their best to mask every bit of the deficiencies in DJ Uyungale's game. Like that's what they were
Right.
trying to do.
Right.
And
And then going back to this last game real quick, if Cal's kicker didn't miss 2 field goals from under 40 yards, Cal would have won that game.
yeah,
We'd be over, which is insane. I mean, we were literally 2 missed field goals away from being an 0-4 team, and that's just insane. Norvell is a phenomenal coach. He has really turned around this program. This program was not the same since Jimbo Fisher left. Obviously, you know how I feel about Willie Taggart. We won't go into that conversation. But Mike Norvell
believe me,
has
there's a lot of people in Eugene, Oregon who don't like a lot of people in Eugene, Oregon. Like I said, I'm a West Coast. I do a West Coast show. Like if you mention the name Willie Taggart in Eugene, Oregon, you're gonna probably get like forced out of a building or whatever.
Yeah, but I love Norvell. I think he's an amazing coach, but he needs to. This goes back to the same thing as Deshaun Watson. You need to stop. You invested a lot in this guy by getting him in the transfer portal, pushing hard for him, but he's absolutely terrible and he's costing your team. You need to bench him. You need to put aside the ego, put aside everything else, bench him, get Brock Glenn or Luke Kromenhoek in there. Doesn't matter which one at this point. Get another quarterback in there and see if the team can rally behind that guy.
Yeah, I would say throw the kid in there, man. I'd say why not
Yeah,
throw the kid? Why not throw the kid in there? Like you said,
yeah,
you're 1-3. You're one and
yeah,
three. Like I mean, hell, like if you strike lightning in a bottle, you could wreck somebody's season still.
right,
Like
right.
you still got Clemson, you still got Miami on your schedule. Like and those are rivalry games that like you don't want like that I know like against hated teams for Florida State. Like
Yeah,
there's still opportunities for Florida State to do something this year.
and they can
Uh,
still make one of those really weird bowl games that nobody cares about. I
yeah,
mean,
go make the Pop Tart Bowl, man. Like everybody loves the
I,
Pop Tart Bowl with the edible mascot. Like that's the great.
as long as they
That's
give
one of the greatest things ever. One of the greatest things ever is that edible mascot for the Pop Tart Bowl.
heck yeah,
I wanted to end on a positive note. We didn't really mention this, and I feel bad that I didn't really get a chance to mention this when we talked about Bills and Jags when I did my breakdown, and obviously we did it here. Shout out to Damar Hamlin. Good
yes,
job. Good, like Damar Hamlin. This guy almost died on the football field just over a year ago, and he got his first career interception. We could leave out the fact that it was a terrible throw by Trevor Lawrence. Let's just not mention that.
we'll
But
talk about that.
but fucking good for Damar Hamlin. Like that is just a wonderful, wonderful story to see him get a starting position on the defense for the Buffalo Bills. He is so beloved for his recovery, and like the story is well documented. Like it was very well publicized because it was on Monday Night Football over the New Year's holiday in 2023. Like it was like that was just it was a traumatic moment, but to see him not only do it like have his first interception in a game like that, to do it on Monday Night Football too, where
Yeah.
everything happened. It came full circle at that point. So to do it in that blowout, it got mixed in obviously with a lot of the stuff going on with the Jags and obviously Josh Allen being Josh Allen. But shout out to Mar Hamlin. That's one of the best things I've seen in the NFL in a really long time. Because to
Oh
see him
yeah.
get rewarded for that, that was just like if you remember, I think they returned to kickoff in their first home game after he was in the building, and they did it for Damar Hamlin. But to see him actually finally be able to have a football moment for himself after everything that happened was really beautiful.
The fact that he's back on the field and able to play and able to be a starter is absolutely fantastic. That was one of the most traumatizing experiences as a sports fan I've ever watched, and we all thought he was dead.
Yeah,
Like we didn't know if he was alive or not, and it was terrifying. And such a short time later, he's back on the field, he's recovered, and he's playing, and he got an interception. That is an amazing story.
yeah. It's so great. Like, and I'm super pumped for him, because above all else, he just seems like a good dude. He just seems like a good
Yeah,
dude. Like it's amazing. Like you said, we all thought he was dead. We all
yeah,
thought we all thought that we witnessed a death on the field, literally.
yeah.
And it's just yeah. So really, just that's like I said, I wanted to end it here on a positive note and just be like, hey, Damar Hamlin, that was like we've ripped apart teams, we've had fun here, but seriously, to see that type of a moment for a guy who's had to work his ass off and literally fight death in the face to get back on the football field is really amazing, and to see that happen just in a game, but also literally full circle Monday Night Football, like a standalone game opportunity for him, just really really cool. So yeah, we went a little bit long here, but this was good discussion, man. Like I know we didn't
It
have
was.
Andrew with us. A lot of great things here. We'll be back next week. Hit that subscribe button here at OT Mike Sports on
Wait,
Twitter.
wait, wait. Before we go, one non-sports related thing. Since this is our last recording before next week, someone in this room is turning 35 in a few days, and we got
Ah,
the big 35. Are you excited for your birthday?
yeah. I mean, we'll have some family actually in from out of town, so that'll be
Nice,
neat.
nice.
And then don't mention it. Like you love my mother, but my mother's turning 70. Like 5 days after that. So it's like it's a big couple weeks here for the Mayer family.
It is.
You know all about it, man. Like it's a big couple of weeks for the Mayer family. But yeah, I'm listen. You know how we always say it here with birthdays. It's like hey, I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful to have friends like you and to be able to talk stuff like this on this channel. Um, like I said, this is what we love to do, and it's just another year. But at the same time, it's like just grateful to be here, man. Like it's I
The
wish
big, the big,
I wish I'd have better teams to root for. Like if I had a birthday wish for my 35th year, I wish I had better teams to root for. God's sake, I mean I'll be rooting for the Cleveland Guardians. Happily go into the playoffs and getting a bye. I mean, I don't think the Rangers or the Blue Jays are going to make the playoffs. So hey, I might have you guys on my side this year. Yeah.
yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah.
Blue Jays are long gone, so I'll cheer for whoever at this point.
So yeah, Danny, giving me a birthday wish. I appreciate that. And like I said, love you and appreciate you, man. Thanks for doing this again. This was another great show. Like I said, like, share, subscribe here on the channel. OT Mike Sports for the channel. Off the Mic 28 if you want to follow me. If you want to follow Danny, go to Facebook because he doesn't have a Twitter. He doesn't have a Twitter.
Fact.
That is a fact, which is lame. We'll have to get him up on Twitter at some point to get him to follow, and you can yell and scream at him if you don't agree with him about certain shit. But yeah, this was awesome, man. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next week, hopefully with Andrew. All the best to him. This has been the Mad Sports Show here on the Off the Mic Sports Network. See you guys soon. Bye bye.